Kitco Mining's special coverage of Resourcing Tomorrow is brought to you by Aris Mining.
Canada is seeking its place in the energy transition. This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at Resourcing Tomorrow in London. And joining me today is Josie Osborn, Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation from British Columbia. Josie, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Canada is really sort of pushing ahead and trying to position itself for energy transition materials. The federal government recently announced this $1.5 billion Canadian dollar Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund. That's all well and good. What's happening at the provincial level?
In British Columbia, of course, we're well poised to take advantage of the emphasis that Canada's placing on critical minerals. But Canada and British Columbia have a long history of mining. And in British Columbia, we have a wide variety of critical minerals and other important metals and minerals under the ground. We have that rich history of mining. We are taking full advantage of the energy transition and knowing that we are a tier one world-leading jurisdiction for mining investment, exploration, and development, and really excited about the future and the energy transition before us.
The copper story in British Columbia is gaining more and more traction, as is the nickel story as well. But it's at the exploration and sort of development stage, getting to that production decision stage that often is where the funding lack is. Are there aspects related to that at the provincial level where you're able to help the exploration sector?
Yes, absolutely. So we've seen a record spending in exploration in British Columbia, $740 million in 2022, which is, again, a record high for BC. And we know just how important that part of the industry is into, moving into full exploration and into mines development. So incentivizing that, creating the level playing field for explorers, enhancing relationships with communities and with First Nations. Indigenous reconciliation is a very important part of BC's modern story around mining. And so our government is fully invested in working with explorers, exploration companies, and in helping to make those relationships and do things in a good way and in a new way of doing business moving forward.
Now, British Columbia isn't just a critical metal story, is it? It's got a long history of gold production. To what extent is there a sort of competition between the need for critical metals and the historic and modern gold mining sector? Or to what extent are you able to balance the two, the demands of the two?
With the history of our province, the modern settler history really is founded on gold discovery and exploration. And gold has been an important part of the mining sector for a long, long time. We know that a diverse ecosystem, really enhancing that ecosystem and all of the secondary businesses that come from mining, gold is a big part of that. Of course, gold and copper are often found together. So that's an important part of making something economical for getting copper out. And we are Canada's largest producer of copper right now. So an exciting story moving forward, but important to really fully develop that ecosystem. There is that emphasis, of course, with the energy transition on critical minerals. So a lot of today's efforts are really being put onto that and working with the companies that are developing deposits that are being found and that we know exist underneath the ground in British Columbia.
A lot of mineral project developers, one of their criticisms is about the permitting process and how long that takes. Are there elements that the provincial government is looking to help facilitate the permitting process or even speed up parts of it? And I'm so conscious that obviously part of that does involve the Indigenous communities. And as you mentioned, the Indigenous reconciliation, that's not necessarily something that moves at a fast pace.
Well, there are two key things that our government is focused on to improve permitting processes. First is direct investment into the process itself and changing business practices, modernizing the software and the systems that are behind the permitting process to improve those efficiencies. We just issued the first major mine permit in British Columbia in a long time for a gold mine, the Blackwater Artemis Blackwater gold mine. 10 months from start to finish of that major mine permit as a result of some of those investments into the permitting process. But we also understand that the Indigenous reconciliation piece is foundational to everything. So by emphasizing the land use planning and collaboration with nations, encouraging strongly companies to form their relationships, achieve consent and approvals from First Nations, even before entering the permitting process, we're seeing real success stories in speeding up the permitting process. And the predictability and certainty in that regulatory environment is absolutely key for industry.
Well, 10 months is an amazing achievement, and predictability and certainty are obviously what the companies and investors want. And obviously, projects should benefit everybody. Looking ahead to 2024, what are some of the things we can expect to see out of British Columbia next year?
Well, one of the things we'll be releasing early next year is our own critical mineral strategy. So we will have a much clearer picture to show and tell and to know where we are going to make those investments in exploration, mine development, processing, manufacturing, recycling, where all of those value chain opportunities are. We're also issuing a call for power in British Columbia. And we're really blessed with a lot of clean energy. We have 98% of our hydropower. It comes from renewable resources. We know that mines want to electrify. We're seeing that. And so by issuing a call for power, more clean power that's available for mines to be hooked up to and reduce their emissions. So those are two really exciting developments for BC in 2024.
When can we expect to see the critical mineral strategy?
We'll see that early in 2024, hopefully first quarter.
Excellent. Well, Minister Osborn, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
And this is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at Resourcing Tomorrow in London. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of Resourcing Tomorrow is brought to you by Artemis Mining.